Hello, and welcome to Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallents, the self-coaching expert. In each episode of the show, we hear the insightful confessions of a successful leader who wants to inspire others to live their professional and personal dreams. I am always keen to hear your feedback, particularly in relation to the kinds of leaders you would like me to invite onto the show in future. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the rich insights from our special guest. Hello and welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallents, the self-coaching expert. In each episode on this show, we hear the insightful confessions of a successful leader who wants to inspire others to live their professional and personal dreams. I'm delighted to say that Tom Moore has joined us in the studio today. Tom is the CEO of Power 365 Solutions, a Microsoft partner rooted with a current 75% ex-military employee count that has grown from one head to 17 within the last 3.5 years. Recently nominated for Entrepreneur of the Year, Tom at the X-Forces Awards in London. Tom's background started in the Royal Air Force, aged 18, and he developed his experience working for corporate technology consultancies serving national and global clients across the Microsoft space. I know that Tom is passionate about the difference he makes in the world, and I'm delighted that he's chosen to share his experiences with you all today. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Andrew. Excited to be here.
No, it was a pleasure. So we've got 40 minutes or so together. Yeah, and I just wondered to start with whether you could actually just tell us more about yourself and your current focus.
Sure. Good place to start, I suppose. I think foundationally, when asked this question, my answer is that I'm a 30-year-old tech geek with a love for motorbikes and cars and anything partially fast. In business, my answer is slightly different. I've always been deeply passionate about technology and its potential to change lives. And I know that sounds slightly cliche, but there's a certain magic around delivering solutions, especially to some of our clients that have got that immediate impact or positive impact on lots of lives. I started my military career, as you said. I joined immediately after my 18th birthday and quickly entered into a consulting space almost, where I was aiding stations and squadrons with business process management and automations and workflows. I was very lucky inside that, really, Andrew, in the sense that I got to deploy predominantly to the nicer places. So I definitely spent most of my time in the sun rather than the cold, but largely and very quickly realized that perhaps the leadership commission side of the military was where I wanted to end up. So I applied and got fast tracked with a slot for some form of internal commission scheme. And then again, a cog kind of turned in my brain and realized that actually the potential of industry was where my focus decided to lean whilst I was in a snowed out hole up in the north of England. Fast forward a few years, I suppose, now with some big kind of market changes, both myself and co-founder Daniel, we saw an opportunity. So we jumped. And that really now brings us to today with the business. You know, the business now is a position of self-funded growth. And as you said, the kind of growth in numbers there is allowing us to move around the market, creating those positive impact changes really to some of our clients.
Thank you. And if I was to bump into you at the local pub or in the park and somebody had introduced me to you and I was asking more about what happens when you're not working, what kind of things would you say to me?
I'm a nightmare for movies. That's where I don't really watch TV. I do love a good movie. Outside of that, the gym always takes my fancy. It's good. It's almost good therapy in itself. However, the honest answer is over the last few years, it would be travel or work that would usually be the first two things that come out of my mouth. disappointingly almost. That being said, I've managed to see some amazing places based on the fact that we can work from anywhere nowadays. So yeah, I traveled the world, started the business, love the gym, love my cars, love my motorbikes. Will never probably give any of those things up, I doubt, in some way.
Super. Thank you. And this podcast and show is all about audiences getting to know leaders that are successful, but what also drives them and some of the challenges they face along the way. So would you be able to just tell a little bit about your own particular childhood experiences that shaped your leadership style and has allowed you to be so successful?
Yeah, interestingly, I always found myself in a non-egotistical way as kind of the epicenter of any friendship group that I was in. I moved around a lot with two disabled sisters and a terminally ill mother from quite a young age. It wasn't easy when I was a child for my stepdad to manage the household in some sense. With him, giving up work and ultimately seeing us lose the house when I was maybe around 13. I don't have an awful lot of memories of that time. I think based on my therapist's guidance, most of which I've deliberately blocked. But I do remember that there was a shift, and when the focus moved away from me, who was a single child at the time, with my sister coming along, born with Down syndrome when I was maybe around 8, and then my second one being born with spina bifida, and then my mother having her first dose of cancer. I remember that in reality there was almost a need in that for me to take care of me, right? And I don't say that negatively in any sense. I always had love at home. I was very, very lucky for that. But I knew that amongst all of my sister's hospital appointments, or the reality was I needed to recognize my own path rather than cry for attention. And I think that perhaps maybe in that I learned that I had the ability to find my own inner confidence. I had the ability to empathize. I had the ability to offer compassion. And it became natural then when with friends for them to look towards me for some guidance. And I think that in a way is absolutely still true today. And on a personal level, especially after losing, mother, nan, granddad, most influential people within my life, all within a short space of time, I've just got an ability to recognize that when I've been placed in certain positions of stress and I'm now being approached for guidance, I've got almost a different ability to look through the door in a different way, and therefore offer the people around me maybe a slightly wider, more mature response to certain situations, which naturally led me into the desire around leadership, especially leadership over management. And that's kind of really how the element of both personal and professional has been developed today, I would say, guiding the business in with a slightly more empathetic outlook.
Sure. And it's very normal for a lot of the entrepreneurs and CEOs that I work for to have been informed by their childhood experiences. And you say, block out the bits that we don't always necessarily want to go back to. And that creates these superpowers, and sometimes the superpowers are around about how we have this ability to achieve and be resourceful and to actually really have goals that are achievable. And also the downside to that sometimes is this about it impacts us negatively when we do too much of it. So, when did you first notice that what had happened to you when you were younger was actually impacting your ability to lead, even though you knew what it was that you needed to do?
Honestly, maybe too late, is the short answer to that with regards to noticing. I am extremely red on the scale, as anybody in this similar seat would say, and I've always noted that my worst habit perhaps is maybe my most toxic trait, to coin a term, is that I struggle with can't do attitudes. And that in itself almost indefinitely lies with the fact that I've third party watched my young sister, who knows she'll end up in a wheelchair, who had to care for her Down syndrome sister, and watched her her mother pass away, and has been bullied continuously, and insert all of the other things that she's come up against. And I've watched her smash absolutely every challenge in her way. And then I suppose when somebody has then approached me and said that they can't do something, or they can't approach the situation without a solution, I'm working on it. And elements as I'm saying that, Andrew, there's maybe that whilst I've used my sister as an idol there, what I've done is I've almost projected the fact that while she was going through some of these things, there were definitely certain things that I was going through at the same time. And that definitely sticks. And I actually noted maybe early on in my professional career that I needed to develop that mentality of mine, where I need to accept that some people have that specific attitude. And I think that what I went through maybe at a young age, and seeing things being taken away from us, and the house, or maybe even the way that I saw my sister treated in the early 2000s with Down syndrome, it wasn't a good time. I've always wanted to therefore ensure that I've never wanted for more, right? And my success curve upon leaving the military was so exponential, from a really, really quiet role in the military to everything landing at my feet. And inside that, and this is where I'm looping back to the fact that I maybe realized too late, is that I found myself, before I even really knew it, faced with the cliff of narcissism, that classic journey that is probably more common than most people realize, and a decision as to whether I should jump or whether I should stay. And unfortunately, Andrew, in there, I lost my wife, I lost friends, I lost part of myself, my desire to almost set that new path for any generation of mine that comes afterwards, based on what I'd been through, left me with that decision. I saw that cliff very, very quickly. I did, and this is the too late part, I thankfully identified it. And I think in itself, walking that road, right, has allowed that, walking that road to that cliff of narcissism has allowed me to take out the benefits, has allowed me to take out the good things. And there are definitely good aspects, and that might be controversial. And instead, what I've done there is maybe stopped myself from continuing to have the bad aspects, pulled myself back slightly. The downside is maybe slightly too late in my journey did I really tie all of that stuff from the past into the stuff from the now. And it's only, through lots of inner journey and inner workings that I maybe realized that in some sense, I needed to deal with those demons before I could really start to benefit the people around me. And it's been a long road, but we are the byproduct of who we are, right?
Yeah, and it's really honest of you to say that. And in the sense of, too late, I know that a lot of things have happened which you can't necessarily change. But I work with a lot of leaders who actually never get to that place, of actually discovering that's what's happened, in terms of treading that fine line, in terms of the cliff of narcissism. And, this is what this is all about, this podcast and show, because there are people out there listening to your words who will think, oh, actually, is that me? I'm 50, I'm 55. I still have an opportunity to actually do something about this, which you have done. It's not easy to do. I understand that. And I don't know if you are able to expand, but what you've said there strikes me. That's not an easy thing to do. So where did you reach out? How did you actually have the courage to have some help in terms of adapting this as you were on that cliff? What did you do?
Maybe more forced than personally identified. And I think with the desire to ensure that the business has succeeded, and in losing everyone around me and family starting to realize that I'd maybe stepped a little bit too far, it was a forced move into sitting down with a therapist. In fact, I'll never forget the first time I sat with a therapist. I was so far into my narcissistic journey that I legitimately sat across from Gabrielle, her name was, and I thought in my mind, I know more about human psychology than you do, and I'm going to play you in this scenario, and I'm going to mimic you, and I'm going to wait for you to speak. And it wasn't until I think the actual moment that I realized I'd maybe gone too far was when I'd stepped out of the room, and this is her profession, jumped back on my motorbike to ride home and gone, why did you just do that, Tom? What was the point in that? You've just wasted a lot of money to try and out psychoanalyze somebody that is a professional psychologist. And I rang her when I got home and said, look, Gabrielle, I'm really sorry. I'll come back next week and we'll do this properly. That was the turning point for me in some sense.
Well, it's interesting. I can totally relate to that because in my first therapy session that I had, it was during COVID as well. I did exactly the same thing, Tom. So I'm not proud of it, and I did apologise afterwards. But I stayed silent for a couple of minutes, thinking, well, you can do the talking here. And so no, I can completely relate to that. It's this unwillingness. Sometimes it's very hard for us to share as entrepreneurs what's really going on for us because we have been used to being so resourceful and so self-reliant because that's what we needed to do. And there is another way. There is another way to do that. So in terms of sort of sustaining this adapted leadership style, you're still a young, man, you're leading this business, it's growing. And we know that as you get busier and there's more challenges and more stress, sometimes those negative saboteurs can come back and start eating at you. So what strategies have you thought about to maintain, this consciousness, this awareness of how you can be drawn back in? How do you manage that on a sort of day-to-day basis?
The element of 360 feedback. And I think that 360 feedback in itself is an insane concept. And I can't or cannot recommend the process enough. That persona that we think we are putting out into the world, I can guarantee to anybody listening here that it's rare that that's the persona that is actually being received. I am deliberately also good at admitting I'm not the best at everything. Although I'll never admit that publicly, so hopefully we can cut that bit. No, I joke. The leadership team that I've then placed into the business is deliberate, right? They're all headhunted. They all bring a different blend of ability. Our CEO, for example, Kieran, is the complete opposite personality to me. I'll jump headfirst off of a cliff, and Kieran will measure every angle, the depth of the sea, the distance between clouds for wind direction, and I'm already falling. I don't even know if there's water down there. So the two things that really have allowed me to remain grounded is to ensure that I'm getting the right feedback at all times, both from, that 360 feedback is both to juniors all the way up through to SLT and even into your personal life. And the big thing there is ensuring that you take it on board, but also ensuring that you surround yourself with people that are going to benefit or complement that yin and yang. That's keeping me grounded in some sense.
And again, a lot of leaders don't go there because they don't want to hear the answers in terms of some of that feedback, because it can be quite hard to hear, at times. What other things do you do day to day? Because I think when we start to feel negative about some aspects of what we do, we can be drawn into this world of saboteurs, which Shirzad Shamin talks about a lot. And the things, again, tend to be our superpowers, but can be very destructive when we're feeling negative. So tell me a bit more about tactically how you manage that on a day-to-day basis to try and remain positive. Day to day, it's very important for leaders to really remain positive in their mindset to make the right decisions, as opposed to thinking negatively, and therefore some of our saboteurs, some of our things from the past come back and make us probably be a bit more judgmental rather than discerning. So I'm just wondering how you maintain as much positivity as you can through your day to make sure that you're making the right decisions.
Yeah, I suppose whilst trauma maybe built me to who I am today, and honestly, in my personal life, it's a continuous cyclical challenge. I am a natural avoidant with regards to attachment style, and I'll forever struggle to repair it. Professionally, it's no different to somebody that's then traveled the world and experienced every culture, right? It's allowed me an insight into perspectives and experiences. And once you've recognized the benefits and embraced the pain, which is mandatory, it then allows you to become that rounded leader. And I think that the big thing for me was, day to day, ensuring that I've identified, my persona, but inside that also ensuring that I note that it comes down to perspective rather than perception in everything that I'm doing. And I focused a lot of my, early leadership days, day to day, immaturely. And whilst I've had emotional awareness of others, and I'm the first that people might come to for help, I was immature in my own ability to see past my own glasses. The once destroyed, once everything was destroyed around me, and I'd pulled myself back in, I learned that life is not really about my perception and is instead about their perspective. Whilst I've got the ability to add my own experiences, it gives me a slightly more unbiased solution. It kind of allowed me to maybe approach that tough and soft piece. The shorter answer, though, is that what I found to be my internal therapy is the gym. And again, I know that's slightly cliche in some sense, but day to day, what I definitely note is that if I don't or haven't, and I suppose, we are, when we sit in these roles, Andrew, right, we are all obsessives in everything that we do. Otherwise, we wouldn't be striving for the levels of success that we are after. And hyper success doesn't come for free should you want it. The gym really is my therapy. And what I note from my own personality is without the gym, I find myself drawing back into the bad habits. And it really, those endorphins I need to have them at least 3 or 4 times a week. Otherwise my personality does change. So yeah, slight slant there on the day to day versus, the early experiences, but hopefully that's the answer to, or hopefully that's an answer to your question there.
No, absolutely. And what you're talking about there, which again, a lot of leaders do and learn how to do, is that ability to become present. For some people, it's walking in nature. Some people, it's the gym. Some people, it's actually just meditating, whatever it is. It's you finding out for you how you can get back to being present when we're feeling not in the best state, either frustrated, resentments there, negativity, judgment. So yeah, that works for you, and that's your way of dealing with it. So absolutely. And, that comes on to the next question for me, which is bear in mind what you've been through. And I really appreciate you sharing what you've been through and demonstrating where you are right now in your life. What can listeners and, the audience who are watching this learn from you in terms of the advice you would give to them if they resonate with this story about what they may have lost in their life, how they've been through adversity and yet have an opportunity to do something they really want to do and be good at it? What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I think twofold, right? And the self-identification of where you sit on those certain roads is a difficult one to identify. And inside that, for anybody that is maybe early on in their journey to leadership, conduct the 360 feedback, right? Accept the words that are given back to you. Don't do it half-heartedly. There are multiple different organizations online that can help you with this 360 feedback that you can tailor as needs. Don't fight the results, don't question them, don't disagree with them. And it's really only then when we can accept that level of criticism that we can truly start to help those people around us. And whilst I draw this now back to the term narcissism, which is a buzzword, it's got a huge amount of benefit for roles that we do today, day to day. It's a powerful tool, as is anything else from the emotional war chest that we might all have been through with any trauma that we've got from our past. But the element of recognizing potential damage by walking too far down that road, realistically, we can't do it all, right? And the theory around alpha males or alpha types not making good leaders is a great theory in some sense to digest. If you look at Elon, or you look at Jeff or Bill Gates, if we draw success, they are wildly successful people, but none of them are alphas. And it's really that ability to accept the help around you. And once you've accepted that and you've worked out what your external persona looks like, the world really is your oyster. Position of sustainable leadership, I would say.
Thank you. You've got a bright future ahead of you. You're very determined, very passionate about what you do, and I can feel that in the times we've spoken together. So just tell us what it is you're going to be in service of just in the next few years, and if people want to help you with that or collaborate in some way, just tell us all about that. What's the future hold for you?
Sure. I think, look, with technology being more and more critical in this day and age, AI and data and buzzwords like ChatGPT and OpenAI, the team we've got here at Power 365 are ultimately looking to shape that path within the Microsoft space. And what we've identified really is that every business has needs for lightweight applications and CRMs and general collaboration of their users. And I think, look, as we continue the road to wanting more for less as humanity, embracing things like AI and data for the purpose of being able to report and transform, it's becoming more and more necessary. That's our business focus. Personally, my focus is largely on the professional development of my team so that they can do something next. What is next for them, that's really important to me. But look, if it's of interest to anybody, you can absolutely find us on LinkedIn or via our website, or contact me directly, and I'll happily blow some imagination sparks into listeners with a plethora of apps in some form of art of the possible session. You'll feel my enthusiasm as I start to discuss automation. So I'll maybe quash myself for now, save for a later date.
Well, thank you, Tom. And I think although they will feel that enthusiasm, they'll also get that vulnerability and honesty which you've displayed today. So, Tom, I really appreciate you sharing your experiences with the audience today. I know that many of them will have really been inspired to reflect on their own leadership style and also how they might actually make a different approach to leading others and themselves really in the future. So I hope everyone out there enjoyed this episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader. You can find out more information about conscious leadership and self-coaching by just typing in Andrew Tallents into LinkedIn or Google. You'll find lots of stuff out there. And until next time, don't forget, stay present, curious, and above all, conscious. Thanks, Tom. Goodbye. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader. You can access all previous episodes of the show at confessionsofaSuccessfulLeader.com. If you are interested in finding out more about conscious leadership and self-coaching, just type in Andrew Tallents into LinkedIn or your favorite browser, and you'll find my contact details and all the content that you need. Until next time, don't forget to stay present, curious, and above all, conscious.